And welcome, visionaries and changemakers, to Lead with LeAnn, where we navigate the waters of business with heart and purpose. Airing every week at 2 p.m. Pacific time, exclusively live on winwinwomen.tv, and then later broadcast all over the place. So I don't know where you're hearing this, but I'm LeAnn Lyon, your Chief Joy Officer, here to empower you with strategies, insights, and a splash of fun. Each week on Lead with LeAnn, you'll join me as we delve into the inspiring stories. And wait till you hear today's story. Oh, I just have chills already for you. Stories of established leaders and innovative entrepreneurs. And we'll uncover just what it takes to build up a brand from scratch. Lead with authority and grace and turn business aspirations into tangible success. So, anchor down, set your sails, and let's dive into the art of joyful leadership. Get ready to be inspired because your journey to brilliance starts right now with my guest, who is a professional women's speaker, a transformational coach, and a best-selling author of this book. Listen to this title. Just imagine what this means. Face to Face with God, My Best Friend. Wow. Terri has one simple goal. Through her dynamic speeches and coaching sessions, she wants to coach you out of your past and into a brighter future. Her mission is to help transform individuals of any age, particularly women, to release emotional triggers and find their true self and release their inner power and and illuminate, not release, but actually illuminate their inner power. Her end result for audiences or clients is to love themselves again and even give themselves a loud and proud 10. Terri, are you there? Are you here? Come on down, Terri.
I am.
Hey, it's so good to see you.
You too.
I'm just so excited because I know your story, but our listeners don't yet. And what an amazing and, I think there's a word for it. It's not comedic, although comedic in the traditional sense didn't always mean what people think. It wasn't a laugh out loud thing. Comedic actually had a tragic side to it, I think, when you look at traditional literature. And your story does too, am I right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So everybody listening, I really encourage you, come on over to YouTube or come on over to winwinwomen.tv and see this beautiful woman. Not everybody here can, we also broadcast this podcast out onto Spotify and Audible and all sorts of places that people can hear this. But I'd really encourage you, and I don't say this on every single show, but come on over and see this show. Because when you see Terri and then you hear the story of what she's been through in her life, it's just pretty amazing. She's a very, looking at her, I'm going to just say she's very sweet. She has a beautiful smile on her face. She has rocking glasses. And, she's a woman of wisdom. We can see that. She is probably a little older than me, and I'm in my 50s. And, but she's been through a lot more than most of us can imagine. And, as we all go through a lot, right? Like nobody gets through this life unscathed. But I will say, Terri, you've been through a bit. And with that, hi, how are you today?
I'm I'm great. How are you doing?
I am really good. I'm blessed and highly favored, no matter what.
Yeah, that's for sure. Absolutely. I feel the same way.
You do. But your life didn't start out quite that easily.
It sure did not. It started out very rocky
Very
from
rocky.
the time I was 5 years old.
Yeah.
And are you ready to hear my story?
I would love if you want to just dive right into it. I would love to hear.
All right, no problem. So I was raised in a very dysfunctional family, like many of you listening have. I was raised with alcoholic parents. I had a brother who bullied me, said things to me like, "You're trash. Nobody's going to ever want you. Nobody's going to ever love you." Uh, and so I listened to all these lies of who people were telling me I was when I was not. And I'll get to that in a little bit. But being raised with alcoholic parents, it leaves you with mistrust. It leaves you with abandonment issues. It leaves you with fear. And I never knew one day to the next what was going to happen. Was I going to get a beating or was somebody going to give me money when they're drunk? So, with all that being said, that's where my life started out as a child. And then in kindergarten, it's supposed to be your most independent day of your life, right? So I went into kindergarten, I waved goodbye to mommy. And within 5 minutes, I had a little boy named Jim Brocky. Yes, I still remember his name to this day, and said three things to me that held me hostage for many years. One, why does your hair look like it's been put in a light socket? Two, why does your clothes look like it came out of a dumpster? And three, why are you so ugly? I did not think I was ugly at all. I had this cute dress on with this cute hat. And, so for many, many years, I was in the same homeroom with him as he tormented me, as he tortured me, as he put things on my seat, tacks on my seat, different things like that. And then on top of that, he had his posse, his people start calling me on the phone and making it sound like they really wanted to maybe go to the movies together. This was fifth grade. And I'm still struggling with this low self-esteem. And I had him all the way into ninth grade.
Wow. And I mean,
Yes,
today, we clearly today, we would call that bullying, and there would be interventions and there would be repercussions. And, children that are doing that are often, at least separated. And often, he would have gotten some help and you
yeah,
would have too,
you would
because
think.
the person being bullied, we know now, there's probably some stuff going on in his life too. Maybe, that, maybe you don't. But yeah,
Yeah,
think of what a different world this is. And yet, every day children go through the same thing.
yes. So the one thing I want to get a point across to the audience is that no matter what you've been through at any age, you still can change and grow and let go of your past. And so anyway, I have more of my past obviously to share. So you just let me know when you're ready for me.
Yeah, well, I mean, it didn't stop there. I mean, in ninth grade, things didn't get just magically better. But
Right.
what, so, want to dive into the next section?
Sure. I'm gonna fast forward now to when
Okay.
I was 27 years old. And now I want to just let everyone know that I grew up with very low self-esteem. I mean, low as low can go. I had my relatives telling me, why can't you be like so and so, or why can't you be like your cousins, and definitely things like that from my grandparents. And so, but I'm gonna go ahead and share when I was 27 years old, I thought I met the man of my dreams, LeAnn, and he told me he had been in the Marine Corps for 9 years before we we got married. And 3 months into our blissful marriage, I was going through some pictures with my former mother-in-law, and the phone rang, and she says, "Keep looking through them," and I'm like, "Oh, and oh, he's so cute! Oh, it's my husband," and just I'm elated, I'm madly in love with this man, right? So as I was digging through these pictures, I ran across a document and changed my life forever.
Yeah.
The document read, "My ex-husband's name versus the state of Indiana penitentiary." And don't you think that got my attention? And so I started reading it. I was looking both ways to make sure he wasn't coming up or my mother-in-law wasn't coming up. And then I just froze because basically what I read is that he was in prison for first-degree murder for 9 years by killing a 61-year-old man with a lead pipe, dragged him into the woods to die. Now, here I am, blissfully in love, and everything changed suddenly. It's like I don't know what to do. So I just ran out of the house as fast as I could, and he had his car, and so I ran as fast as I could to this restaurant that my mom and dad and my ex-husband visited frequently. And I told the manager, I said, you need to get me out of, you need to hide me someplace. And because we didn't have cell phones back then, we had these big honkers, you know. So anyway, so my mom and dad came and got me. And then an hour later, here comes my ex-husband. My dad walks out with a shotgun. And then next thing I know, my wonderful husband flips out and says, you know what? He says, if she doesn't come with me right now, I'm going home. I'm going to kill the cat, burn the house down. I'm going to kill your daughter. So you have these choices, old man. And so I went back with him. And the minute that he knew that his secret was out, it was hell. He just abused me every single day, knocking me in the face, punching me in the eyes, trying to break my bones. He held me hostage in my house. He took all my money from me when I was waitressing. And then the unthinkable happened that I never thought I would ever do. But I needed money and I was desperate. And so I went out, and in our neighborhood, there was a gang that was selling cocaine. And I absolutely started selling cocaine.
Okay, no,
And
hold up, because
okay,
everybody listening, do you remember the description I gave earlier of this woman that is sitting in front of me right now? Because you cannot imagine, you can't, I can't, this woman hitting the streets and selling cocaine at age 27 or whatever age you were at that point, but pretty close.
yes,
You really can't. And I want to remind people too, from what she's describing right now, she went on to become a successful author, successful on stages, passionate about helping women entrepreneurs. I just want somebody needs to hear whatever's going on in your life right now, your story's not over.
that's right.
Hers wasn't either. So please continue.
Sure. Many of your stories are just beginning,
Yeah.
and some might be stuck. You might need to learn how to let go. And so hopefully tonight this TV show will help you get there.
Mhm.
And so anyway, after all that was final, I became a full-fledged alcoholic. And then I still needed more money, so I ended up going out and hustling pool. This was all while he was at work. But however, I had spies on me all the time.
Yeah.
The funny thing about all this was I became the #1 pool hustler in the state of Indiana as far as the female area.
There you go. Again, you're like 6 feet tall, right? No, not even close. You're a tiny thing, aren't you?
All the time. No, yeah, no, I'm 5'3".
You're
Yeah.
5'3". You're fairly tiny. I mean, for a pool table hustler.
Well,
5'3" too. We're both undersized. We're both fun sized.
yes, yes. So then after our divorce was final, I looked in the mirror one day. He had already left. He was already on his next girlfriend. And so I looked in the mirror and I said, okay, Terri, you've got to get your act together. There's just no way around it. I looked terrible. I was on Valium. I was drinking Jack Daniels, smoking weed, doing cocaine, everything. And then I just looked in the mirror and I said, you've got to get your act together. And so I decided to go to a shopping center. And all I was going to do is go buy some makeup and a couple of different outfits to make myself feel better. And a man approached me with a knife, and he walked me back into my car and threw me over the passenger side and attempted to rape me. Now, the only way I was able to get out of this, LeAnn, is I told him I was already pregnant. I escaped out of a mental institution, and that my husband carries a 357 Magnum, and he's an officer inside the mall, and he's going to come out and find me not here, and he's going to come looking for me. Now, all that was a lie, every bit of it. But I wasn't walking with Lord at that time. So, you know, so So basically, he drove me around the parking lot, and I was smart enough in my wits to look at his profile and get everything that I needed to tell the police. However, that wasn't the case. So next thing I know, he has me in this parking lot, knife to my throat. Then he takes it off and he puts it on my breast. I am I'm scared to death, you know. And so one thing I did that has totally changed my life is my last resort was, God, I don't know who you are. I don't worship you. I'm a sinner. But if you get me out of this situation alive, I will turn my life over to you for the remainder of my days. Within 2 seconds, that knife comes off my breast. He opens the car door and he says, get out. I got better places to be and better people to see. And he said, I'm going to park your car in the parking lot someplace, and then you can do whatever the heck you want. Well, I was just going to go into the shopping center, and I was just going to shop, and then just going to call my mom and dad and tell them that my car had been stolen. But instead, I had an emotional breakdown inside the shopping center. And when I came to, I had 12 officers around me. Ma'am, we need to get you up. We need to get you up. You know? And so next thing I know, they're taking me in the police interrogation room. And the next day, I identified him in mugshot. After looking through 500 pictures, the detective was giving up. And then the fifth page to the last book, that's where we found him. And he was arrested, and I sent him to prison for 30 years. I have no regrets in that whatsoever. No regrets. And so with all that being said, LeAnn, it stripped me of my identity. It stripped me of my self-confidence, my integrity. Everything was just gone. I felt this small. Okay. Not only that, I had to go down to the hospital and have a rape test done too. He did not rape me. He did a sexual act on me, but he did not rape me. And but the beauty of this story, and this is why I call my book Face to Face with God, My Best Friend, is because my best friend spared my life that day. And to this day, I've been walking with God for 38 years. He is definitely my best friend. And so with all that being said, I went on my own journey over 30 some years ago to find who I truly was, because I didn't know who I was. I was beaten up. I was bruised. I did not have any self-confidence whatsoever. I don't even know how I got through life, to be honest with you. It's just, I look back and I reflect on all this and I go, how did I do this? How did I do this before I found God? But when I found God, things changed, because when I went on this journey, it was a challenging journey to discover who you truly was.
So it's safe to say you were not raised going to Sunday school.
Oh,
At that point in your life, had you ever held a Bible in your hands that you remember?
probably when I went to church with my grandparents.
Okay,
Yeah,
so a little
and
bit of
probably,
exposure.
and I
So
probably, yeah, I
that's what,
probably used it. I'm
oh,
sorry.
so
Go
that's
ahead.
how you knew how to reach out to God. So that's a start. What
Yes.
was it? So how did you start from scratch, from that much of a scratch? Did you go talk to your grandparents? Who did you talk to next? How did you start to build that relationship with your best friend?
How did I start to build my relationship? Well, I started. Okay, so 3 weeks after I prayed that prayer,
Yeah.
I was met at a restaurant that I worked at. A lady kept looking at me, and finally she says, "Is your name Terri Bracken?" That was my maiden name. And she said, I said, yes. And she said, do you know Cindy Fow? And I said, yeah, she and I used to party together in high school all the time. She goes, well, that's me. I was like, oh my gosh, here's what I was thinking. This woman has either had a facelift or a transformation. So me being the alcoholic I invited her to go out and have a drink, and she invited me to her boyfriend's Bible talk. And I go, well, I can't come this week because I'm in a pool tournament. But I finally did go. And then it took me a while to get to church because I'd go out and party all night. And then, come Sunday morning, I'm like, I'm not going to go today. And
Yeah.
finally I went and I just fell in love with it. And so I don't look back. I
Yeah.
don't look back.
I'll share a fun story with you. Just last night, um, I was invited to an online baptism.
Online baptism. Wow.
Online baptism. So here's how it went down. This, oh, I have chills.
Ugh.
There were over about 2 dozen of us online from 6 different countries. And the baptizee, and he shared a little of his story, and he'd known of God, but hadn't truly accepted him all the way into his life. And when he did, then, the person who was working with him just said, have you taken the step of baptism, of
Mhm.
actually, doing baptism? And so that he said no. So yeah, we saw the waterfront wherever he was. I don't know if it was ocean or lake or whatever it was, but Australia. And they showed it, and it was beautiful, and it was sunset, and or maybe no, actually, it was like 10 a.m. in the morning in Australia. And he walked into the water with somebody who then, they asked him the questions. Do you believe and do you want this? Is this of your own choice? And he said yes, and all that, and then they dunked, and he came up
Wow.
clean. My and we did baby infant baptism, when my children were little. That's just all I knew. And I remember when we took our youngest daughter to be baptized, our oldest was there, and she was talking. When we sprinkled the water over, of course, and the older daughter said, "Baby, all clean." And I think that's precious. And again, I'm not going to disparage in any way any baptism, infant baptism or adult, but there is a different feeling and a different experience of adult baptism. And my 5-year anniversary is coming up this weekend.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank
I'll
you.
be 39. 39 in July. Yeah.
39 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't forget that. And
I
again,
don't.
if anybody's hearing this and like curious, reach out. You could reach out to Terri. You could reach out to me. You can reach out to any friend that you've ever heard talking about this. Maybe that seed is planted a long time ago for you. If it's being watered right now, check it out. We're
Yes.
not here to evangelize, but
Mm-mm.
sometimes if we're stirring something in you, don't let that die.
Exactly. I agree totally with that.
Yeah. So, wow. And then you started going to church and became rich and famous. That's how it worked, right?
Oh.
Okay, so there's more to the story.
Well, first of all, I'm only rich in God's eye in God's eyes because we're going to heaven and stuff like that. As far as money, no,
Famous, right? We're famous in God's eyes. There's a
we
song about
are.
that, right?
We
We're all
are. Yeah,
famous in our Father's eyes. Yes.
exactly. Yes.
And that's the only
So,
eyes that matter.
right. So, what was your question?
Well, it wasn't, you weren't suddenly an overnight success. Some people, there is a prosperity preaching out there that just says, once you give yourself to Jesus, he'll take care of everything and you'll be prosperous and you'll be wealthy and you deserve to be wealthy. And we do. But again, that wealth isn't necessarily found in this life. It
Right.
might be. There's nothing wrong with wealth in this life either.
Right.
We don't have to be broke and broken to be amazing Christians. In fact,
Exactly.
we can give more to others if we're not broken, broken.
You got that right.
So, we can all set our minds and sights on um, wealth in both worlds, if you will. But you went on to do a lot of other things, not only write your book, but actually be on a lot of stages. Stages. The
Hmm.
girl who had no self-esteem, the shell of a woman in her late 20s, ended up being on stages. And what would you share?
Sure. Well, when I was going through my personal journey, that is now my coaching program for all the clients that I've coached over the 14 years. I found myself. and it was hard because there was like a spiritual warfare, The
Mhm.
old Terri would be there, the shy, the introverted, the feeling ugly, no, not having self-worth. And the next day, the real Terri would be coming out, the joyful, the happy, the secure. And I remember going to church one time and people would be coming up to me going, you're going to be such a great leader someday, or, I love your hair, or I love your dress. And I'd just be throwing these compliments back in people's faces. I remember telling one guy, you need to take your glasses off or put your glasses on or whatever the case might be. And I got tired of it. I just got tired of not being able to see what people saw in me. And so that's when I was finishing up my journey. And I was like, if they see it, God, I need to see this. I need to see it. I need to see me. And so next thing I know, one day at a time, I just started feeling so much more confident. And I kept growing and I kept growing. I'm looking in the mirror going, who are you? You know? And people at church were like, oh, what's happening to you? And I said, I'm finding my real self. And it's amazing. And I love her.
Now, is
And
this intentional or unintentional? But I heard exact opposites from what that little boy told you in kindergarten. You
uh-huh,
said that people would compliment your hair when he said something so negative, and that people
mhm,
would compliment your dress when he said that it looked like it came from trash. That was an intentional comparison.
yeah, I would say so. I
Mm.
would definitely say so because people don't realize how their childhood could still be affecting them today. Some people don't care. Some people don't know. But some people, like my clients, they want to dive deep into it and figure out, why am I stuck? Why can't I move forward? And so after I started building my self confidence, nobody was doing it for me. I mean, God was helping me definitely, but I didn't have cheerleaders. God's my only cheerleader really in life. And the amazing thing about it was is that I started seeing things that people were starting to see. They put me in leadership, and so I was growing in that. And then next thing I know, I'm getting jobs where I got to be in front of people and I got to talk. And then people were asking me, can you come up and do communion?
Mhm.
Granted, I hadn't arrived in overcoming fear of public speaking because I would hyperventilate in a paper bag before I got on stage, but I did it because I wanted to break my fear. I wanted to turn my fear into faith. And so I did it. Don't know what I said, but then people would come up to me going, "Oh, that communion talk you gave, it was such an impactful one, and you changed my life." And the car going home, I asked my husband, "What did I say?" And this is my husband of 30 years. I did remarry, have a wonderful husband now. I was blessed with a stepdaughter. She will be 40 next week. Cannot believe that. But on my journey, I just started believing in myself more and more and more. And it was just a beautiful thing. And then I could tell things were so different because on my job I feel so confident. But then somebody, invited me to be interviewed for Home and Garden Party, which is kind of like home interiors. And so I was out in public, walking into these people's houses and being the center of attention. And it wasn't that I enjoyed it, but I did it,
Yeah.
and I made some really good money and I met so many great people. So I left there because one night I was doing a fundraiser for a domestic violence organization in Indianapolis, and the pastor came in. And there's a long story behind all this, but he started sitting in his chair and he was rocking in his chair. And I had four of my friends plus a newspaper editor. Now we are all domestic violence survivors, okay? And he said, ladies, there's a need for another organization like ours on the west side of Indianapolis. He says, I believe you believe ladies are being called to do this. And then he looked at me and he says, I believe, Terri, you're being called to lead this. I was like,
Wow.
whoa. I said, well, I've always wanted to open a pet shelter. So, and I did. I did. But that's where my confidence, I had to step into trauma every day. I had to step into helping these victims that were in these abusive situations. Should I leave? Should I go? And an executive director, you have no time to have low self-esteem. These people can see right through you. So I had to grow very, very, very fast. And I was the executive director for 9 years, and was president for 3, and then we opened up, and so I think altogether I was there 10, 11 years. And then the unthinkable happened. Oh, on top of this, here I am petrified of public speaking, right? So the first day that we have the center, LeAnn, I have so many calls coming in. Terri, will you come and speak at my church? Terri, will you come and speak at our Women's Day? Terri, will you come and speak? I'm like shaking like a chihuahua. But, all in all, we opened the Domestic Violence Center. It's still going strong today. And I'm not in the leadership role by any means. I'm still the founder.
So
And
you said the unthinkable happened. What was that?
the unthinkable happened when my executive coach came to me one day and she said, Terri, we need to talk. And she also oversaw the board. She shuts my drawer and she goes to my whiteboard and she writes empowerment speaker, workshop facilitator, best-selling author, radio talk show host, and transformational coach. And she looks at me and she goes, what do you think? Oh, absolutely. I see you being all of these. She said, no, I see you being all of these. And I was stunned. I was really stunned. And I started to cry. And she says, girl, why are you crying? I said, I never had anybody believe in me this much. And she says, well, I'm going to work with you for the next 6 months. You're getting out of there and you are going to be able to be more intimate with these women that need you. And I said, I told her, I said, Shamara, I don't even know if I believe in myself this much. And she says, by the time you get home, you will, because I know you. So then I had to do what most women dread. I had to have this conversation with my husband. So he walks through the door and he could tell that I was very hyper about something, even though I wasn't acting that way. He just knows me. And he says, are you okay? I said, well, we need to have a conversation and it needs to happen tonight. And he's like, okay. You know how men are. Okay. And they get all insecure. So I started this way. I said, listen, it's not about us. It's not about our marriage. You did nothing wrong. And so he wanted to give me he wanted to take about 5 days to think about all this. And he came back and he said, you're going to do this. So you call Shamara tomorrow, let her know that we're going to get started. And she was giving me an unbelievable discount off of her consulting packages. And that's how I became what you call the famous coach and speaker.
Well, look, I have never had this guy visit during our show before. People listening to the podcast, my cat just decided to crawl on my lap and visit.
He's so cute.
17-and-a-half-year-old Sam.
Oh my gosh.
Look at him, he's just burying himself.
Hi, Sam.
He's getting bony. He's old.
Hi,
But,
Sam.
but I think he was also moved by your story and he had to come over and say hello. And he's gonna He's never come onto my lap. Normally when I'm doing the show, he stays outside the office, even though I don't have a door.
It makes sense. I'm an animal lover.
Oh, well, you did say, yeah, that's true. He probably hears it in your voice. Very cool. Wow. So that led you to the other things. I'm going to dive into a question that I like to ask. And I know that you had a less we already said a not ideal childhood. But there comes a point, when you're 5, you have a very clear memory of being 5. That first step into school. But at 5, you're still not independent. You have to, mom and dad relatively know what you're doing. Although, as a child of alcoholics, perhaps you grew up a little earlier than some, more responsibility. But let's take you to the age of 8 or 9. So before the age where most kids are maybe left alone or put in charge of other children, but old enough that you do have some autonomy. I know at that age, in my age group, I could walk a mile to the bookstore and buy a book and, be gone all day and come home at dinner kind of deal, um, in years past. But what do you remember doing with your free time or imagining? What was your imagination life about, if you can recall at 8 or 9 years old? What would you imagine?
Well, I wanted to be a professional ice skater.
Yeah.
So at age 8, 9, I was skating. I was skating probably about 4 or 5 times a week, 3 times a week, because I had a strict dad, so he wouldn't let me go out on weeknights. However, my mom and I would always strategize. And so she would say, well, just go to the trash and I'll come around and pick you up, you know. And so she just like, well, your dad's going to think you're in your room anyway. We both got in trouble several times, trust me. But at the ice skating rink, now this is going to sound so incredibly different from what I've shared. When I was at the ice skating rink, I was very popular. I had so many puppy love boyfriends. In fact, I had 7 at one time. And when you know that they all found out about each other, and then I lost all of them. But I really was popular and I was a very good skater. And I think that's why I was popular. And um, and I had some really cool skates, a lot more expensive than what most of the kids did have, but I needed these skates. Um, so with that being said, that's what I was doing at 8 and 9. And I was also dancing. My
Mm-hmm.
mom and dad put me in dancing lessons when I was 5. And while I was in dancing lessons, they were out drinking at the bar.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes I think that they put me in those dancing lessons just so they could go drink. But I ended up becoming a really great dancer. Um, my self esteem was still not there, but for some reason, I managed to get through life not having a lot of self esteem, but being very successful. And I know that it's just not making sense, but that's what's happened. That's what happened.
And the reason I asked the question is I find it interesting, and I got a very clear answer when you were speaking. I believe, and I think I can safely say we believe, being the women of faith that we are, that the Bible actually says we were known before even the earth was formed, that there was a calling and a purpose for us. And that, by the
Mm-hmm.
way, goes for anybody listening to this. There was a purpose, a calling, a reason for your existence before
Mm-hmm.
even the earth began. And so that calling and that purpose, I believe, can show up in our lives, I think, really very clearly at that point, at that age. And when we're not filtered yet, nobody is, well, in your case, maybe a little bit more so than others, but people haven't shut us down quite so much.
Right.
Happens more in junior high school for more people. Junior high school, senior high school can be vicious. You start
Oh,
getting
yes.
societal, you need to do this, you have to be that kind of pressures. But at 8 or 9 years old, I find that we can be very pure.
Mm-hmm.
And at 8 and 9 years old, you were already on stage or preparing to be on stages. And
Didn't
that's
know it.
prepared for the rest of your life, right? Look at that. That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying, is that there seems to be a lot of um, correlation between that age and what ultimately you end up doing in your life that made you very, very happy.
Yes. I loved ice skating. I did end up becoming a professional ice skater. And yeah, Disney on Ice. Um, they were a talent scout. This is off the chart, but he was sitting in the audience, and I was skating, and I was doing my axels and jumping in the air and flying through the air. And then he stops me when I come off the ramp, and he says, I've been watching you all night. Well, back, now these days I'd be like, oh my God, are you going to attack me? But he says, I'm from Disney on Ice, and he gave me his card, and I was 16. And I will never, ever forget this, how high I was that night when he said that to me. And he says, but you're going to have to get consent from your parents. And you talk about the air just coming right out of your body, because I already knew what was going to happen. I already visualized it. And so I went home and told my mom and dad. My mom was excited and she was very proud of me. But my dad, he was like, you need to call that guy and tell him that no daughter of mine is going to be tramping all over the United States. I don't care what they offer as far as school, or you're staying home, you're not doing it, call him. And I didn't call him. I was hoping that my dad would change his mind. And he didn't, but the phone rang at dinner time and it was the talent scout. And he told him exactly what he told me to tell him. And I lost my chance. And trust me, I did not like my parents after that at all.
So
So,
you had the opportunity, but you actually never did skate for them. Yeah,
no.
I actually had a similar thing. I mean, sort of. I accidentally ended up auditioning for a theater school here in the Twin
Oh,
Cities.
well.
And it was a very, very well known theater school, children's
Oh,
theater here in Minneapolis, very well known. And they had a children's theater school. My friend wanted to audition for it. I just went along as support. We had to memorize a little bit of a monologue. I started it and blacked out. The next thing I knew, I woke up and people were cheering wildly everywhere around me, and I had no idea what I had done. None. So whatever I did in that 2 or 3 minutes was all God just carrying me through it because I didn't remember a minute of it. And
oh,
I got into the theater school and she did not. And my parents wouldn't let me
mm,
go. They
oh,
They did not want me to have the life of a performer. And again,
yeah.
I love my parents. I respect that they were trying to see, what would the life of a performer look like?
Mm-hmm.
And, being on stage, looking for the next performance, there's performers go through a lot. They put their bodies through a lot. I mean, there's far more unsuccessful performers. We can say the same about athletes. You know,
Absolutely.
such a tiny fraction of athletes make it to pro. But do you just kill the dream? I don't know. I love my parents. I respect that they made that choice for me. But, you never totally get over when you feel like you found something
Mm-hmm.
that
Yes,
could have been amazing. Yeah.
yes,
And
yes.
yeah, and look at me here. I'm performing.
Yeah,
Surprise.
absolutely. Well, I actually applied to be one of the Rockettes in New York,
Oh, very cool.
and they accepted me.
Woo.
Okay. But here's what happened. I was playing volleyball. I did not have any shoes on. The dew was settling in. Okay, full transparency, because I'm a real person. I drank too many bottles of Boom Farm that day.
Ah,
Boom Farm wine. You know what that is?
yep.
Okay. And so basically, when I went up to catch the ball, I slid and I broke my elbow
Ah,
right here. And it took 4 doctors to find out there was crumbled bones in there.
oh,
Okay, so that was going to limit me from anything. Um, and so when I talked to the Rockcat manager about it, they were just like, you've got to have all your muscles and joints and working all the time, because this is a very strenuous thing.
yeah.
And they also want you to do cartwheels. They want you to do this. And I used to do cartwheels all the time. I used to do solo cartwheels.
Right.
Unfortunately, I was not able to be a Rockette either. And every time I see those Rockettes, sometimes I'm like, yeah, shouldn't have drank that Boone's Farm.
And yet, the way things go in our lives, sometimes those redirects are for our benefit. There aren't, you know, we don't believe that God gives us I just believe we're directed in the right way. I mean, as much as some painful things in my past too. I was hit by a drunk driver. I lost somebody to a drunk driver. You
Mm.
think you think it can't get worse, and then it does. But um, if I hadn't gone through those, or in the case of my friend who was killed by the drunk driver, um, I was supposed to be in the car.
Oh,
I said no. I was invited to go. I said no. I wasn't in the car. Somebody else was instead, and both were killed. And again, you could feel like that's, I could take that on as a, wow, that's my fault. It wasn't. But, you know, the other person being there instead of me kind of deal. But God also gave me a gift with that one. He showed me that there was another purpose for those two people to be in the car. Drunk driving laws across the nation changed after that accident because the parents of both of those young people were in legislatures in two different states.
whoa.
My mom and dad love them. One's a bookkeeper and one's a nurse. I don't think it would have changed the world,
Mm.
and they did.
Wow.
So sometimes we can't outguess God, even when we go through things. And God clearly gave you the opportunity to come to Him literally at knife point.
Hmm.
What a blessing. So, as
Yes, I
usual, we have flown through our time together. And it's just unbelievable. I want to make sure that we let people know, if you want to talk more with Terri, if you want to look into what she's doing or how you can connect with her or anything else, Terri, where is the best place for people to find you?
they can go to my website at www.terri, Terri, more, Moore, coaching.com. Or you can go to Amazon and purchase my book, Face to Face with God, My Best Friend. Or if you find my website, you can go on my website, order the book. You're going to get it cheaper. I'm going to be able to sign it and send it out to you. The other
Beautiful.
thing, yeah, absolutely. Or I can give you my phone number if anybody's interested in that. I don't care. It's
Wow.
317 201 8389.
Wow.
And
Call or text. There you
I
go.
know, I know. And I thoroughly enjoyed this. And believe it or not, uh, all this stuff happened to me many, many years ago. But every time I share my story, I feel more healed. Believe it or not, because
Wow.
I'm not speaking from my scars. I'm speaking from my wounds now.
Wow.
Okay. And I used to speak from my scars because I had not figured out how to let go of them, how to forgive. And I had a lot of people to forgive. And I just want to encourage each and every one of you out there that if you haven't forgiven yourself for things that's happened to you in your life, this is the time now because forgiveness is not about others, it's about yourself.
Truly. Yeah. And I'll tell you, the day I came out of that water 5 years ago, some forgiveness that I had held back
Mm-hmm.
was done. It was accomplished. Like
Yes.
if I went back and even thought of those past situations, and I haven't even referenced them here today, there was a sense of peace and calm that surpasses all human understanding in
Yeah.
place of the sadness, the fear, the anger, the hurt, the wounds that I had previously experienced. So truly, truly, if you hear something in what Terri or I have shared today, I encourage you, don't just poo-poo it, pursue it.
Right. I like that. I love that. I'm going to start using that.
Oh, there we go. See? I won't take credit for that one. It's all good. Thank you. Thank you, Terri. I just really appreciate you. I will say last words before I wrap things up here.
Oh, do I want to say anything? I'm sorry.
No, it's good.
I was looking at your beautiful smile. I got caught up in the moment. The only thing I want to say is that, again, what I said earlier is that don't worry if you have not found yourself yet. I have people call me and they might be in their 60s or 70s and they're still wanting to find themselves. And there's never, ever too late. And when you find your true self, it is the most beautiful thing and a beautiful gift that you can give yourself. Even though I look in the mirror sometimes, LeAnn, and I have bags under my eyes or I have gray hair popping out or, crow's feet running across your face, I can still look in the mirror and give myself a loud and proud 10 because I know where I've been, I know where I am, and I know where I'm going. And 2025 is going to be the best year I've ever had.
Well, thank you, Terri. And thank you, Terri, so much. And to our guests as well, listeners, live here today and, throughout the future, as you've been listening to this on all the different podcast networks. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for joining us. Please let us know if there's something that touched your heart or inspired you from this. We'd love to hear from you. So thank you for joining us on this journey to unleash not our, but your joyful business potential. And remember, leadership is a voyage that you can take together. So keep shining and aligning with your, I'm just going to say it, whether you believe it or not, God-given purpose. So come on back next week and every week at 2 p.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. where I am, Central Time, 5 p.m. where Terri is, Eastern Time, exclusively on winwinwomen.tv for our next inspiring episode. And so until that time, this is LeAnn, LeAnnLion.com, 5 letters in LeAnn, 4 letters in Lion.com, your Chief Joy Officer signing off. Keep leading with heart, and I'll catch you on the next wave of success. Farewell, and keep spreading joy.